It was 2 a.m., and the practice facility was officially closed. The kind of closed that signals an ending, a boundary between effort and rest. Yet one court remained lit. A single set of lights cut through the darkness. Kobe Bryant was still there, alone, sweat soaking through his jersey, breathing controlled, movements precise. The echo of the basketball filled the empty building, not loud, but relentless. No schedule demanded this moment. No coach approved it. This wasn't extra work. This was unfinished business. He had stayed long after the final team session ended. Long after trainers packed up and left. Long after the reasonable assumption that the work was done. Every shot followed the same rigid sequence. Catch, balance, release. If it missed, the correction came immediately. If it went in, it was repeated. Makes meant nothing unless they could survive repetition. There was no celebration here, no satisfaction, only verification. Earlier that night, the game had looked fine to most people. The numbers were respectable, the performance acceptable. Many players would have gone home without a second thought. Kobe Bryant didn't. He felt the looseness immediately. A half step late on defense. A shot taken a fraction out of rhythm. Details small enough to ignore, but dangerous enough to grow. He knew from experience that decline never announced itself loudly. Kobe believed those small details were the most dangerous part of success. They disguised themselves as comfort. They appeared after wins, after praise, after routine settled in. He had watched it happen to others. Talented players easing up without realizing it. Veterans trusting memory instead of maintenance. He promised himself early in his career that he would never confuse experience with preparation. At 2:11 a.m., footsteps broke the rhythm of the gym. Kobe didn't turn. He recognized the sound instantly. A coach had walked in, expecting darkness and silence. He stopped near the sideline, arms crossed, watching quietly. The scene surprised him. Not impressed him, surprised him. The facility wasn't meant to be alive at this hour. The coach smirked. It wasn't cruel or dismissive. It was casual, the kind of reaction that suggests excess, as if to say this was unnecessary, as if the work had crossed from discipline into performance. Kobe noticed the reaction without reacting to it. The ball kept bouncing. The routine continued unchanged. Minutes passed. The coach waited, expecting acknowledgement. A nod, a comment, something. Nothing came. Finally, Kobe stopped shooting. He picked up the ball and looked toward the sideline. There was no anger in his expression. No need to defend himself. Just a steady, deliberate look that carried intention without explanation. The smirk disappeared immediately. Whatever the coach had planned to say lost its weight in that instant. No words followed. None were necessary. The silence said more than a conversation ever could. And from that moment forward, the gym felt different, even though nothing visible had changed. The look Kobe gave was not confrontational. It wasn't meant to challenge authority or assert dominance. It was a look shaped by certainty. He wasn't asking for approval, and he wasn't offering an explanation. The hours he kept belonged to him. In his mind, justification was unnecessary when commitment was consistent. The work spoke before words ever could. That certainty came from years of observation. Kobe had seen how quickly standards slipped once success arrived. He had watched players rely on reputation, letting repetition fade. He learned early that respect in the league was temporary. Preparation was the only thing that didn't fluctuate with opinion, mood, or circumstance. The coach understood that immediately. The silence stopped feeling awkward and began to feel instructional. This wasn't excess for show. This was someone operating on a different timeline, one that didn't pause for schedules or expectations. The question the coach had planned to ask no longer mattered. Kobe turned back to the basket and resumed shooting without waiting for a response. The interruption ended the moment it began. To him, conversation would have diluted focus. The rhythm returned. The repetition continued. The gym settled back into its original silence. For Kobe, explanations created openings for doubt. If something required defense, it probably wasn't essential. The gym at 2 a.m. required none. It existed because it had to. That belief removed the need for permission entirely. That night confirmed a truth he already accepted. His standard would often be misunderstood, sometimes mocked, occasionally questioned. None of that carried weight unless it changed outcomes. And outcomes were measured later, under pressure. The coach left quietly, without comment. No confrontation followed. No correction was issued. The door closed softly behind him. Kobe never looked back. The exchange was finished before it fully began. What remained was the same sound as before. The ball, the floor, the steady rhythm, and a standard that could not be weakened by reaction or reinforced by praise. Kobe Bryant's standard did not appear suddenly. It was built slowly, shaped by patterns he observed over years. He watched how effort softened after wins, how routines loosened once expectations were met. Nothing collapsed at once. Decline arrived quietly, disguised as comfort, and stayed because no one challenged it early. He noticed how small concessions multiplied. A skipped workout here, a late arrival there. Each decision felt harmless on its own. Together, they changed outcomes. Kobe believed discipline was not intensity in bursts, but consistency without negotiation, especially when no one demanded it. Showing up early once meant nothing to him. Showing up early every day meant everything. The difference wasn't motivation. It was policy. Policies didn't depend on mood. They survived fatigue and doubt. This belief separated him from others. Teammates lived in seasons. Kobe lived in cycles of improvement. Each day either moved him forward or backward. Neutral effort did not exist in his framework. The gym at 2 a.m. was not about toughness. It was about removing variables. When pressure arrived, preparation had already decided outcomes. Emotion simply followed. Kobe understood that effort during games was unreliable. Circumstances changed. Fatigue distorted judgment. Crowds amplified mistakes. Preparation before those moments was the only constant he trusted. So the rule became simple. If something mattered, it deserved attention when no one was present. If it only existed under observation, it wasn't real. That rule would soon separate him from nearly everyone around him, not through speeches, through habits that refused to bend. As Kobe's habits hardened, distance followed. Not hostility, distance. Teammates respected the commitment but rarely joined it. The hours were too early, the silence too uncomfortable, the expectations too specific. Coaches appreciated the results but felt the contrast. One player operating beyond schedule forced questions others preferred to avoid. Kobe accepted the tension. Approval had never been the objective. Games reflected the separation. In tight moments, Kobe looked composed while others reacted. The repetition from empty gems created familiarity others lacked. Criticism arrived naturally. Analysts labeled the approach obsessive. Excessive. Kobe never corrected them. Labels didn't change outcomes, and outcomes were the only metric he respected. What few understood was that the work reduced pressure rather than increased it. Familiarity replaced panic. Structure replaced doubt. The hours absorbed anxiety before it appeared. Distance remained, but clarity increased. Kobe had chosen which mattered more, and he accepted the cost. The coach from that night never questioned the late sessions again. He didn't need to. The response he received required no follow-up. The standard was no longer personal. It was visible, whether others followed it or not. Years later, stories would surface. Early mornings, late nights, empty gems. Most would treat them as legend. Kobe knew they were policy, repeated without exception. The night at 2 a.m. with the coach was not dramatic. No argument, no speech. Just alignment between belief and action. The look ended the conversation, because conversation was unnecessary. Standards do not negotiate. They operate. That night did not change who Kobe Bryant was. It revealed him. The work continued the next morning and the night after that. Consistency was the point, not the moment. Greatness, in this context, was not achievement. It was maintenance, performed daily and unseen. At 2 a.m., when the gym should have been empty, Kobe stayed, not to be seen, but because leaving felt dishonest. And that was why one look was enough, because nothing else needed to be said.